Matt can get his beer while we do this. Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings.
Hello and welcome back to another week of Vikings Happy Hour. I am stoked this week. We have a new member for Climbing the Pocket, Tonishka. She's here to join us this week. And then we got my guy Ryan as well, back for another week, here to talk about all things Mike Hughes, Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, do guards matter, should we overpay him? The whole kit and caboodle, we got it here tonight. So how are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Ryan?
Fantastic. Ready to get this conversation going. Got my favorite beer here again. Bringing it back. We got Angry Inch Brewing here in Lakeville, Minnesota. And I'm drinking the Menage a Trois today. So hopefully you guys are will enjoy this content and enjoy your favorite beer as well.
You got a whole growler there.
Well, it's more economical. I'm going through way too many crowlers that I was wasting too much money. So we went to growlers.
Tonishka, you got anything you're drinking tonight?
I got Coke.
Hey, I said grab a beverage of choice. So Coca-Cola is the way to go. I like it.
Yes.
I am a fountain pop guy, though. Or would you say fountain soda? I know some people don't like pop for soda, but... David, what do you got?
I have got tonight an Odell Brewery Mercenary, Tropical IPA. I know the gloss is true bad.
Yeah.
It's a double IPA, 9.3 ABV.
Ooh,
It is.
you even got higher than me today.
Yeah, and it's got the nice dry finish that I like, and it's quite a good beer. Brewed up in Fort Collins, Colorado.
You guys keep like just going up and up on your ABV, and I'm dropping this week. I went to Boom Island and got their Abbey Blonde, so it's only 5.3%, but
Delicious
it's
beer
smooth.
though.
It is very good. I
yeah,
just
I
saw
love
it, and so with that being said, let's dive in here. We got the first topic we wanted to talk about is Mike Hughes and his fifth-year option. I know that we chatted about it a little bit last week on the show, just briefly, but I felt like it was a good time to really dive into it and really get to the bottom of who Mike Hughes is and what he's done while he's been here as a Minnesota Viking. So I could not find for the life of me, though, what this fifth-year option would cost the Vikings. I searched for maybe like 20 minutes and I couldn't figure it out. And, you know, I think it's somewhere around that 8 million mark, but regardless, Ryan, we'll start with you. We might have some connection issues with Tonishka there. So, Ryan, why don't you start us off? Your thoughts on Mike Hughes? Should the Vikings give him that fifth-year option?
Absolutely not. I don't think that, one, we have the cap space going into the even next year to really afford what he brings to the table, which is injuries and mediocre play when so far that we've seen. He's shown some flashes. I think that he has a lot of talent. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy enough to realize that talent. And when he is playing, it seems like he's playing hurt. So again, we haven't gotten to see the true Mike Hughes. I think we got a little taste of it his rookie year, and he did show flashes. It looked good, but going into that after that injury, his rookie year, I think it was an ACL tear, I believe, and going into that next year, he just wasn't the same guy. He looked a step slower, a step less explosive, but again, still showed some flashes. So but again, got injured again, and then he keeps getting injured. So it's hard to really trust Mike Hughes at this point, anything more than a welcome sight if it does come to fruition. But right now, given the fact that we have to make that decision, there's no way we can. And then hopefully he shows out this year and proves to us that we don't need to have another guy on the team that we need to bring in. And we'll hopefully, again, if he plays well, maybe we can give him a decent mid-sized contract going into next offseason.
We got a strong comment in there saying that they just cut Hughes and saved the 1.17. What do you guys think of that? Tanishka's shaking her head no. What do you think?
I don't think so. I still think that he has like a ton of talent, and it's just with him, it's just been so unfortunate because he's been hurt. It's been a different thing every single year, but I think that he brings a lot to the team as a whole, even if it's not on defense, because I feel like they could get him to return. He'd be better than Osborne. But even then, I just don't think cutting him is worth it. Just let him play. If he's hurt, then okay, we're done with him. Then he'll add something of value to the group as a whole. But not long term. I don't think a fifth-year option should be on the table just because of his past. Maybe if he shows out and actually stays healthy, it's a different story, but I don't think it's really worth cutting him because he definitely is talented.
Yeah,
I agree.
I was just going to say, I was
going to say, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
I was saying that I was reading a PFF article by Brad over there, and he had Mike Hughes' stuff all ranked out of like when he entered the league and kind of his PFF ranking, and 128th out of 183 qualifying corners. He posted a 58.0 overall grade since 2018. Granted, he's only played in 24 games, so sample size is small, but still, to both your guys' points, he's been hurt. And I personally feel bad for him. I think we all can remember when he was a rookie. He came in, he had that pick six, and I think we all were just like, boom, we got the cornerback of the future. We're ready to roll. And then a few weeks later, tears his ACL, and then we roll into 2019, and he just can't stay healthy there either. So, what were you going to say there, Ryan?
Well, to get the guys in the chat involved here a little bit, you're right. He hasn't stayed healthy, and yes, he has showed potential, but again, staying healthy, I don't think it's really a smart move to move on, because the 1.17, you're not going to probably find a replacement talent level at that price. So again, he can't stay healthy. He might not even play. Who knows? But the risk, I think, of only risking that 1.17 to get the potential of getting the play that he can do if he stays healthy, which is a big if. But I think that 1.17 million is worth the risk, because what are you gonna? I mean, yeah, it'll be nice to save that money, but you're not gonna get much replacement for that same amount of money elsewhere, if that makes sense. I mean, you can maybe find a diamond in the rough, but or a guy who, and again, the corner market is might be strong this year, and we might be able to get some value given the salary cap issues. Some guys are going to have to take some cheaper deals just given the situation, at least just 1 year deals. But again, for 1.17, I don't know who's going to take that, who's got his talent level, in my opinion.
Well, I think, even to Tonishka's point there, where she was talking about, his ability to punt return, right? Like, he's way better than KJ Osborne. I think we all would agree with that. So that's a part of his game as well, where, if healthy, he could be a really, really good foundational cornerback for this team. But I think that's the problem. And I think we all do agree that if he can't stay healthy, he's just not worth that fifth-year option.
Right. And we can't cut him because Miles will cry, because that's Miles' boy. we don't want to see Miles tearing up.
I'm reading Deshaun's comments down there. Never given up more than 60 yards receiving when he takes the majority of his snaps in the slot. I feel like that's accurate. Go ahead.
He hasn't, every game that he plays in the slot, he's been pretty darn good. He's always struggled on the outside. I think the Dallas game left a really bad taste in people's mouths, but I mean, Cooper is pretty darn good. So there is that, but he's a different player when he's in the slot. They did put Gladney in the slot pretty much all of last year, so I guess it really depends on who goes outside, but if he can stay healthy, again, big if, but he's better than Gladney in the slot.
Yeah, and I think to your point too, I think when people think of Mike Hughes, they think of just like a few moments in time. One, I already mentioned, it was that pick six when he first started his rookie year. The other one was when he got absolutely roasted trying to guard Amari Cooper. I think it was Sunday Night Football last year, or it would be 2 years ago now. And I think to your point, that's ingrained in a lot of fans' memories of like thinking maybe he's worse than he is. But we have to remember at that time, the Vikings were thin at corner, and they were asking Hughes to play on the outside, which he's probably not as comfortable with. And to Deshaun's point in the comments here, the slot is probably the best position for Mike Hughes to play. And so I really do hope that Mike Hughes can get healthy. He can ball out this year. And I hope that the Vikings can somehow retain him heading into 2022, because I do think he's a good depth piece, and he's a solid starter for that slot role.
For sure.
But to your guys' points, yeah.
Because
and to your guys' points,
I think Gladney's
go ahead.
Better outside anyway, so that would be ideal if he stays healthy.
Yeah, and I know we didn't really talk about it pre-show at all, but I think the Vikings can feel comfortable with a Gladney, Dantzler, Hughes, if healthy, and then bringing in an additional vet. I don't know if I would feel comfortable with them just relying on another rookie to come in. And I know, Ryan, you know a lot about the free agents, so I don't want to put you on the spot if you're not prepared here. But are there any free agent corners that you know of that might be able to come in and fit that void?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite options. He's kind of coming off not a down year, but just an unassuming year. But he's shown some really great flashes of being really awesome. Is William Jackson III out of Cincy? Big fan of his. I mean, not that this matters, but when I do my Madden franchises, he's one of the guys I typically like to trade for or sign in the offseason if he's available. He's a good player. I think he plays a slot, or I'm sorry, the outside corner back really well. He's got some dogging him a little bit, and I like that in cornerbacks. Again, one of my favorite corners in the league. Unfortunately, plays for our rival Jair Alexander. I'm always looking for the next him, right? The next guy who's going to be a dog. And William Jackson doesn't have that in him, but he's got a little of it in him. Another guy that I like is, again, depending on his cost, he again coming off an injury last year, is AJ Boye. He got cut from the Broncos. So he could be another really good option. Again, depending on price, we're not going to have a ton of money to work with, but and I think he'll likely be a little more expensive than William Jackson, but hopefully not much more. And you can bring him in and again provide veteran leadership to that young group and be a good viable, cornerback 1, cornerback 2, right? I see that we have Steven mentioned Desmond King. I do like Desmond King. He is a slot-only corner, but again, another guy that can play the corner if you can kick Gladney out, play the slot corner, and be a dynamic punt returner because he's a fantastic punt returner. So I wouldn't mind that as well. So yeah, those are a couple of guys that I think would be really awesome. I see Jason's asking, what money? I agree. Like I said, it'd be a hard signing to do. I think Boye would be harder than Jackson, but if you can, allocate resources well and make some good financial decisions in the offseason, like you guys were talking about last night, Jason, I think you can really get some value in one of these with some of these corners in the free agency, just given the fact that we're going to have a weird free agency with the salary cap issues. So hopefully we can maybe get Jackson for a steal, at least for a 1-year deal and approve a deal. And then maybe we can sign him long-term if needed.
Tonishka, any names that you're kind of thinking of?
I did see Deshaun in the comments say,
oh no, I think we lost her again. I feel like she was going to talk about Xavier Rhodes. He was brought up in the comments. Ryan, any thoughts on a reunion tour?
I mean, I've always been a big fan of his, but we're not playing that traditional. I think Indy was playing more of that cover 2, cover 3 type scheme, and that's not really a scheme that we work with much at all. I think we're traditionally a little bit more man or off man, which Rhodes is a fantastic man corner, but when you get him off man, he just kind of seems lost. He's not twitchy enough to react, especially to those shorter routes, and that's really what got him in trouble his last year with us. So I wouldn't mind bringing him back. I always loved Rhodes the player. Again, another guy who's got a little dog in him and loves to chirp, especially with those top receivers he was shutting down like Odell. But again, I think it's probably a hard ask for him at this point in his career to play anything more than what he was thriving in Indy. And I can't imagine he would go elsewhere at this point unless they just don't have the money, which we all know Indy does. So,
is that who you were going to mention, Tonishka?
I was, but also just to say that I don't think it would be fun to think about, but I don't think it would be realistic. One name that was interesting, I feel like, is Brian Poole on the Jets. I think they'll want him back, but
we just keep missing out. She's got a lot of hot takes, and I'm ready to hear them, but that internet, we just can't quite find the right key there. So
And make sure you guys follow Tonishka online on Twitter, because she does have, some good takes here. I think she was going to talk about Brian Poole again, another guy that I remember Miles and I specifically were really in on him last free agency. But again, he ended up signing for actually a decent contract over with the Jets, and wish we would have given him that money. But yeah, I like Brian Poole. I think that's where Tonishka was going to go. I'll let you kind of finish, Tonishka, now that you're back.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with this, but yeah, I think he was solid for them last year. It's just we can't really compete with them when it comes to money because they have so much of it. So I mean, I don't see a world where they wouldn't want him back, but I don't know, anything's possible, and he would be a good addition.
Yeah, I think for the Vikings, at least, when you think about just free agency in general, which can kind of lead us into one of our next topics here, but um, given the COVID situation and the cap kind of dropping and all that stuff, it's gonna probably put a lot of good players out there who want to just sign 1-year prove it deals because they don't want to take less money. They're gonna want to come back out and hit free agency again. So while the Jets do have a lot of money and could retain Poole, it could be a situation too where they just kind of let him go because there's better options out there. Like they could go heavy and get some other players as well. So with that being said, I want to dive right into our other topic here. It's trending all the time. I feel like on Vikings Twitter, I don't know what the exact split is, but I feel like it's 50-50 because I do feel like I see a lot of people who say that we should overpay for an elite guard. I feel like you two are both on the same page if guards don't matter. So I want to kind of toss it over to you guys. Tonishka, you can go first. Do you think that the Vikings should overpay for one of these elite guards? We got Joe Thuney. Market value on I saw online was 5 years, $76 million. Brandon Scherf, 5 years, $63 million. Is that something you want the Vikings to do?
That's just way, way too much. And I think it's to the point where like bad guards and like really bad guards and really elite guards matter, but everyone else just doesn't. Like when you have the worst combo, that matters because that can screw up a whole offense. But I feel like an average one wouldn't really like make or break your team, and I think.
Yeah, I think she was going to kind of go down the line of you don't really need elite guard play, right? Like you can really get by with average guard play. I think Ezra Cleveland is a perfect example of that, right? Like he stepped in and he did just average. He didn't do above and beyond what we thought he was probably capable of, but he didn't do horrible, right? He didn't do Drew Samia horrible. Sorry, Ryan. But with that being said, Toniska, you're back. Why don't you just pick up right where you left off? So you were kind of talking about just kind of the average O-line play and how you can kind of still function with that. Can you hear us, Tonishka? Not again. All right, Ryan, why don't you give us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you would love a Thuney or a Scherf caliber player. I mean, that would be fantastic. That's the goal, obviously, right? Is to get either draft a player or get lucky and sign a player like a Wyatt Teller, right? I think they ended up he was drafted in the 5th round, I believe, but get a player like that can just kind of blow up. That's the goal. But you can't go out and pay that money to get that player, right? It's not feasible, especially with our salary cap situation. We're just not going to be able to do it. Also, I don't think it's smart to do that. You take a look at the Cowboys and how much money they invested into, Zach Martin. That's great, and they have a lot of money. They had a lot of money in Travis Frederick. They had a lot of money in Tyron Smith. So they had a lot of money in that offensive line. And where did that get them? they couldn't pay defensive players anything. So you had to rely on drafting that. And again, it's a lot easier to cover up a serviceable guard than it is to cover up a serviceable corner or a serviceable defensive end or a serviceable safety or receiver or whatever other position you want to talk about. I think the tackles are very important, and we have two very competent ones in O'Neal and Reef. Again, if we keep Reef, that would be smart in my opinion. If we let him go, that we're taking a big risk because we're relying either on a rookie or a free agent signing or Cleveland, which is essentially a rookie at left tackle because he played right guard. So I don't think it's smart. I don't think it's money well spent. I think you can go get a mid-tier Austin Blythe, a mid-tier. I think Filer is becoming a popular name amongst Vikings fans here lately to fill that void and give you that hopefully serviceable play, and then you can go and get like a third receiver, which again is the other hot button topic. That needed? Yes, it is needed. Stop playing around, guys, thinking it's not important. It's very important to have a third receiver, because if Adam Thielen, who's aging, he's as old as I am, so he's aging, goes down, or even a Justin Jefferson tweaks one of those chicken legs that he has, it's not going to be a good thing. Like we're
going to get some pushback there.
And don't get me wrong, I love Justin Jefferson. It's just he does have tiny little legs. He does. I don't know why, but they're tiny. But anyway, or like I said, any injury that comes of that, we're relying on BC Johnson, which he's not a bad player. He's a good wide receiver 4 probably and good depth piece, but you don't want to rely on him to play every down or most downs. So I think it's more important to get an average guard, a wide receiver 3, and use that money to spread amongst depth and amongst other areas rather than get an elite player at the guard position.
Deshaun is lighting up the comment section here, and he's going to get his chance in a couple of weeks here. I'm going to have him on the show. He's got the opposite takes that we have. He wants to go all in on a guard, and he doesn't think we need a third wide receiver. I'm going to give you the stage here, Tonishka. Tell him why he's wrong. Oh, no, she's muted. Hold up there, Deshaun. She's going to come in and give you what you deserve here. Still can't hear you, Ryan. Why don't you feed him why he's wrong?
Again, basically everything that I just said. I mean, if you spend that kind of money on Scherf or on Thuney, you're not going to have any money for anything else. And we have a lot of holes on this team. And to Steven's point, yes, it's a good receiver class. You're 100% right. But in my opinion, you need to hedge your bet, because as I was talking with, I think it was Drew Christensen on Twitter earlier today, we've had some success drafting receivers, in the later rounds with Diggs and with, obviously Justin Jefferson was a first round pick, and even BC Johnson in the 7th. He's a serviceable guy. But we've also had a ton of misses. I mean, guys that don't make the team, Stacy Coley and Rodney Adams and Laquan Treadwell. I mean, there's a lot of guys that you miss on too in the draft. So yes, it's a deep class, but are we going to hit like we hit with Justin Jefferson, or are we going to flop like we did with Treadwell? And again, I'm not saying that they're considering using the 14th pick, even though if Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle or Chase fall to us, that'd be great. I mean, I'd love that, but that's probably not going to happen. So hedging your bet with like a Keelan Cole, who's also got return ability, and then going and maybe drafting a guy in the third, fourth round to kind of hedge that bet. I think that's smart football. That's smart football, because receivers do get hurt, and that's one of the most important positions on offense. So you want to have plenty of them, and you don't want to be relying on a guy like BC Johnson to be anything more than a 4th, 5th receiver on your team. So you're hedging your bet by signing a Keelan Cole, which is what we're suggesting. And again, he's the popular name because he has a relationship with Keenan McCardell, who's our new receiver coach. But and then hedging your bet, like Steven's saying, by drafting a receiver as well, maybe in the mid rounds, like a what's the cat out of Ole Miss that Jason loves? I'm drawing a blank on his name. Tylan Wallace is a popular name among some Viking fans. I really like Daz Newsome and Diami Brown from the Tar Heels. So yes, there's some good talent in the draft, but there's also I think you should hedge your bet with it, like a mid-tier signing, low-level signing like a Keelan Cole.
Tonishka, we got your mic working again? I don't think so, man. That's disappointing.
It's so weird. Yeah.
Very quiet. So we'll just kind of keep moving along here. I want to get to Elijah Moore. Who is Elijah Moore? I see him lighting up the chat.
Yeah, he's the Ole Miss receiver that Jason's in love with, and I agree. He's a great player. So he's the Ole Miss receiver that likely is going to probably end up being, I think, a second round pick. Maybe he falls to the third, but I think he's showing a lot more promise than what the early indications showed in the mock draft season. So
I saw a. Can you hear me now? Does that work?
Yeah, we can.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I think it was from PFF. I saw earlier today about a stat about how Elijah Moore creates the most separation. So I think that he's an easy option that you can just like put in the slot and roll as receiver 3.
So do we think that that we should sign a guy like Keelan Cole and then go and get a guy like Elijah Moore in the draft? Is that kind of like the vibe I'm getting here?
I want to do both. I just think that they have, like, for Minnesota right now, we have 2 amazing elite receivers, and then we have a bunch of borderline McDonald's workers. So I think that it's a bit harsh, but I do think that we need not 1, but 2, like, average guys as depth.
Yeah, I mean, I personally agree as well. I've talked about it in length on a few different shows, and I know I'm seeing Drew Bunting's in here. I know, David, I know that's your guy. He's kind of trashing Keelan Cole a little bit. I saw Flip trash him as well. A little plug for next week. I have a guy, his name's Steven Turner, and he's the host of 102.7 ESPN's show, The Game, out in Kentucky, and he actually used to call college games for Keelan Cole, and he'll be on next week. So I want you guys to come back next week in the chat and make sure that you listen to what he has to say, because he says Keelan Cole's got a great story. He'd be a perfect fit for this offense. He'd fill that wide receiver 3 spot. He'd fill that punt return role. So while y'all are sitting there just trashing him, hold that thought and come back next week, because I promise my guy Steven is going to turn your opinion around.
Hey, I don't know why there's hate on him. I mean, he's going to be a low-cost guy that can play wide receiver 3 and punt returner, and he'll come cheap. I mean, he's not going to be an expensive signing. And all he did was outperform what he was supposed to do in Jacksonville. He overtook my boy D.D. Westbrook on that Jacksonville depth chart, and he just kept showing up and making plays when given the opportunity. And it pains me to say it. I hated the guy because I wanted D.D. Westbrook to blow up and be the next best thing. And he didn't, because Keelan Cole kind of kept him at bay at a certain point. And like I said, I'm not saying he's going to be like the savior of this offense, but I think he'll be able to provide good quality depth at wide receiver 3 and at punt return for cheap.
Flip is sitting there talking crap about Aldrick Robinson. Do we not remember what he did the first year he was here?
Make plays after play after play. I mean, I think he scored like 5 touchdowns.
Touchdown. I don't know. Flip, I want you on in a couple of weeks when Deshaun's on, and you guys are going to go at it. I want to hear what you have to say, because y'all are just spitting nonsense in the chat tonight. What did you think about Aldrich, Tonishka? Did you like Aldrich Robinson when he was here?
I did, yeah. I thought that he was a good like third option, and because I'm pretty sure him and Kirk had played together previously too, so you could see that chemistry already there. And yeah, he was a good deep threat. He had a couple like 20, 30-yard touchdowns too, so I don't know. I thought he was decent. Better
I
than
do
what we have
too.
now, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think to your point, you could see that connection from Kirk. Kirk wanted him in, he got him, and then all we saw were touchdowns. And if that's what a wide receiver 3 is doing, sign me up for that every day of the week, because that's what I want. Ryan, you look like you got something to say.
Well, Flip's making a comment on here, and he's just lighting up the chat, which I love. I love all of the engagement here, guys. Keep it coming. I love it. It gives us things to talk about outside of just a pure script that we have going off of. He's saying that wide receiver 3 is a starter in a modern offense. I agree, 100%. He is a starter in a modern offense. And do we run a modern offense? That's the question. Because last year we did not. Last year we ran an offense from 2000, so which was very effective back then, and obviously it worked for us last year. I mean, we
It
put
was
up some good
effective
offensive
last year.
numbers. Yeah, we put up some good offensive numbers last year, but we don't know what we're going to get from Clint Kubiak. And like I said, and I agree, yes, wide receiver 3 is important, and it is part of the modern offense, and that's why I'm saying let's double down. Let's go grab a guy to hedge our bet, and then let's go grab a rookie. Again, not the high draftable rookie, unless, again, one of those top 3 guys falls to us. But go grab a Diami Brown, and hopefully he falls in the 3rd round. Or go grab a Daz Newsome in the 4th round. Guys who can go and play, who have been effective in college football. Elijah Moore, like I said, I just don't know if we'll be able to be drafting him, because I think he's going to go at least 2nd round. But there's a lot of guys in this draft, as Steven mentioned earlier, and we can go and hedge our bet from our signing with a Keelan Cole type. It doesn't have to be him. He's just a popular name because of the relationship with our wide receiver coach.
So I want to switch gears here. We've said his name before. I do miss Jarius Wright as well. There was a comment in the chat. I miss Jarius Wright. That was my wife's favorite player when he was here. Never should have let him go. I just wish he would have played special teams, because that's probably the reason he was cut. Anyway, moving on. Kirk Cousins. Every week, I feel like I'm going to be done talking about this, and then someone just throws some firewood on the fire and it just stokes it, and here we are again. So Peter King came out this week. I feel like everybody's talking about it. Blockbuster 3-way trade proposal. Niners receive Kirk Cousins. Texans receive Jimmy G, 49ers first, Anthony Barr, Alexander Madison, and a Vikings 2021 first, 2023 first, 2022 second, 2022 third. Vikings receive Deshaun Watson. Are you guys pulling the trigger? Would you do this?
It's a lot to give up. And I talked about this a little bit on Mock Draft Monday. If you weren't listening in then, tune in on Mondays. I host a show with Tyler Fornes, and we talk just Mock Draft Mondays. We do mock drafts for the Vikings, but we touched base on this just a tad bit on Monday, and it's a lot to give up. There's a lot of talent that you can get out of this class, and hopefully future classes with those picks. But that's assuming that we make the correct picks, which
right.
It's in the first round, it's like a 50-50 shot. Anything beyond that, again, it just gets lower and lower and lower. So when you have a guaranteed franchise quarterback for who's only 25 years old, that you would have him locked in for the long term, I think I pull the trigger, make the deal. We'll have to draft really, really well, and of course, make some really good, smart decisions with our money in the free agency. But I think it's worth that risk, and to guarantee yourself a quarterback who's only 25, so you've got at least probably 10 years, hopefully 15, of good quality, high caliber play from that guy who's shown to be what I view as quarterback 2 in this league. And then you figure the rest out later. I think it's the smartest move going, for the long-term future. But again, it is a tough pill to swallow because it is a lot of draft capital, and you're losing one of your key defenders in Anthony Barr, which again, I think it's a highly replaceable position, but he's not an easily replaceable player, if that makes sense. So what are your thoughts, Tonishka?
Yeah, while we got you here, Tonishka, we got to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I would do it. I just think that at that point, Watson is such an upgrade from Cousins that it's worth it. It would hurt me because Barr is one of my favorite people, and seeing him go would be heartbreaking. But it's worth it. It's not as bad as I thought either. I thought it would be like more first round picks, but they do get that one from San Fran, so that sort of helps as well. But I think it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think that speaks volumes coming from you because I think with your Twitter presence, you kind of hold yourself as I want to say a Kirk Cousins defender, but one of the more realistic Kirk Cousins defenders. And so the fact that I feel like you are willing to pull the like say yes to this deal speaks volumes. And I agree. I think Barr, like we saw what the defense was without Barr this year, right? I think that's a big void, and that we're all looking forward to him coming back next year. I think we all know how easy it is to kind of replace that running back position. Albeit I do love Alexander Madison. I love his hurdles. They make for cool highlight videos and get you stoked during the game. But at the end of the day, I think the point comes back to what Ryan said, and you need to be able to nail these first round picks, right? That's the whole thing. There's just this assumption amongst Vikings Twitter when we speak about trading these draft picks for Deshaun Watson. We know what Deshaun Watson is. We don't know what these draft picks are. They could be Garrett Bradbury and Laquan Treadwell. And if you're asking me right now if I'd trade those two for Deshaun Watson, I'm saying yes every day. But for some reason, we have people out on Vikings Twitter. I don't go on Reddit very much, but I'm sure there's people there as well who are just like, no, I'm not. Kirk is QB1 and he will be forever. And I just think when you have an opportunity like that blockbuster that's proposed by Peter King, you just have to take that deal.
I'm okay. I like Kirk. I like the dude. I just think that Deshaun is such an upgrade over him that even if it's a little pricey, or even if you're a little nervous about all those picks, at that point it's worth it because then you don't have to worry about that position for 10 years. And it's okay that way because even then, I think that Deshaun too can mask more holes than Kirk ever could on this team. So maybe we wouldn't be super competitive right away, but we'd have first round picks in a few years again, and if he'd be here for a whole decade, then we'd be competitive for most of the time.
Well, yeah, and I think that you also have to think about Rick Spielman's track record, assuming he's still here in the late rounds, right? He's found gems from the round 2 and on. So I know we look at the first round, it's the biggest sell from an NFL fan's perspective. We love it. We all know those names, whereas we probably don't know the later rounds as well. But there's still a lot of talent to be had in those later rounds. So if I'm just giving up one of my 7 picks, granted it's the first round, there's still 6 more rounds to get another guy who can make an immediate impact. I'm talking Brian O'Neill was a second round pick. Dalvin Cook was a second round pick. We got.
But we are losing 2 second round picks in this as well. So I mean,
are we?
So the way I look at the trade is that you're trading away Kirk Cousins to the Niners for a first in Jimmy, and then you're turning around and trading 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and Jimmy for Watson, which again,
and Barr and Madison.
And Barr and Madison, yes. So tough pill to swallow. That's a lot of draft capital. That's a lot of, obviously Anthony Barr, Jimmy G's a competent quarterback. I wouldn't put him in the top half of the league or anything, but it's a lot of draft capital for a player. But again, when you're set for the most important position in the league for 10 years, hopefully, that's huge. But again, this assuming that Watson would waive his no trade clause to come here, which he's apparently reportedly said he's only willing to be traded to the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Panthers. So we have that as well. So, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Rick's going to mortgage our future, so to speak, and risk the continuity that he has going into him and Zimmer's likely final season if they can't produce. So I think that we're going to probably stand pat and try to win some games this year so they can save their jobs.
Two points to what you just said. One, I agree with you. I was just listening to Locked On Vikings, not vodka, Locked On Vikings by Luke Braun, and he had Chad Graff on, who pretty much said Vikings right now, no interest in trading Kirk Cousins. So I do agree that we'll probably end up sticking with him, which is fine. But to Flip's point, and I want to kind of get back to this. We talked about all the things that we would trade. You kind of broke up the trade a little bit. Are we not getting enough for Kirk Cousins in this deal? Because when you think about it, we saw Stafford the other week go for 2 first-round picks, albeit Jared Goff was a big reason why another one of those picks was included. We just saw the other week Carson Wentz go to Indianapolis without a first-round pick. It was as like second and third, I think. Yeah. So are we not getting enough back in this blockbuster proposal from Peter King for Kirk Cousins, or should we be giving up less is what I'm asking. Tonishka, why don't you take it away?
So in this, we would technically be getting Jimmy and a first from San Francisco, and I think that's enough. I mean, like the Stafford deal, people reference that a ton, but it's mostly because Jimmy, he has a really cheap contract. You can cut him and save like everything. But with Stafford and Goff, the extra pick was solely to get out of Goff's money. So I think of Kirk and Stafford sort of as the same when it comes to this sort of stuff. So in reality, if it wasn't like with the Rams, I feel like Stafford would have gone for first and maybe a third. But I think that this is fair just because I feel like as a fan base, some of us tend to overrate Kirk just a bit. I've seen stuff where people think we can get multiple firsts for him, and I think that's a little pricey, especially with his contract as well.
I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think Kirk should go for? If you're GM right now, what would you? I know you said Jimmy and a first, and I assume that's the 12th overall pick. But what would you give away Kirk Cousins for?
If I would do something like Jimmy and a first, or I would do something like, I don't know, maybe Denver or Carolina and try to get like the 8th pick or the 9th pick, which they have, and I would do
bringing Teddy
like,
back.
Straight up. Do what?
Are you okay bringing Teddy back?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I like the dude. I mean, at that point, you're in for like a 2 or 3 year kind of rebuild, and I feel like he'd be a good like bridge quarterback, no pun intended. But like, because if you did trade Kirk, then you would end up with like picks 8 and 14, for example, and you could package those and move into the top 5 super easily and get Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, whoever you want, and then you can let them sit behind Teddy for a year or 2 and then go from there as you rebuild.
Ryan, if you're GM, what are you giving up Kirk for?
Peanuts. No, I'm just joking. No, I mean, so let me backtrack a little bit here to the trade, right? To the Peter King trade and Flip's comment of, are we valuing or are we devaluing Kirk here? In a vacuum, yes, we are. But when you take a look, if you take San Francisco out of that deal, and just giving up what we're giving up specifically and just working directly with Houston, which I know it's not the case here, but Kirk Cousins, Barr, Madison, 2 firsts and 2 seconds, right? I think that's what the deal would be. Is that too much for Watson? I don't think so. Because essentially what's the asking price for Watson is 3 firsts and a quality defensive player. And I think I think, it might be a little pricey, but I think it's about an even trade. So now if we're trading Kirk for Jimmy and 12, I think that's devaluing him. I think he's worth more than that. In my personal opinion, I wouldn't really care. I mean, I would take Jimmy just to be kind of the bridge and the mentor, so to speak, to hopefully a rookie that we bring in. Excuse me. But I would almost rather get an additional pick rather than Jimmy. So yeah, a Stafford type trade, a first and a second, a first and a third, I think is really what his value is. We always dog in his contract. It was bad, so to speak, when we first signed him, but now more and more quarterbacks are getting paid, and now he's becoming, less and less of the highest paid quarterback in the league. And even though his cap hit still straps us from a cap standpoint to really build the team he needs around him to be successful, he's not overvalued at this point from a contract standpoint anymore. So we can't really use that as a crutch in our argument against Kirk. And he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's serviceable. He's top 12, maybe top 10. He's not better than Baker, but he's good. And I just threw that in, Matt. I'm sorry. But he's a good quarterback. And we need to make sure that we're getting value, to Flip's point, for him if we are going to get rid of him, because he's not a slap quarterback. He's not Ponder. He's not Case Keenum. Like he's not a bad quarterback. He's actually a good one. We should get value back for him. And I think we can do that if we decide to move on from him with the Niners, or if Denver or Carolina are interested in him. But we need to make sure we're getting proper value. But if you're going to get Watson, you go get Watson and you trade what you need to, because again, 25-year-old for the next 10 to 15-year quarterback, you're set. And he's he's QB2 in my mind. So I would make that deal.
How many untouchables on the current Vikings roster? I don't care if they're impending free agents or not. We'll just say from last year.
Hey, hold on 1 second, Matt. Hold on 1 second. Flip just said that we're saying Kirk is less valuable than Wentz. Tonishka and I both just said that we would need at least a first and another round pick, like a third round, or a high caliber quarterback that can be that bridge, like Jimmy or like Teddy or Drew Lock, even, for an example. I don't think that's worse than what Wentz just got traded for, which is what, a second and a third? Like, I don't see how that comment makes sense.
Conditional first.
No, I think it's a conditional second, I think. Isn't it?
I swear it's a conditional first.
No, it's a conditional second. And if he plays 70% and makes the playoffs, or 75% and doesn't make the playoffs, it goes to a first.
Okay. We're talking about, I know, David, I know I saw your chat there about money in Kirk Cousins' contract. Ryan alluded to it. Tonishka alluded to it. I don't think that Kirk Cousins' contract is that outrageous. I think the part that sucks about it, it's not the cost, right? His cap hit is whatever. The shitty thing about Kirk Cousins in his contract is the fact that it's guaranteed, right? You can't move anything around unless you extend him. That's shame on the Vikings. Shame on Rob Brzezinski for allowing that to happen in the first place, right? He's the only player that's gotten that to happen, and we're seeing the repercussions of that. You have to keep extending him if you want cap hits to go down. And it's a foolproof method for Kirk Cousins and his agent, because he just gets to sit there and be like, okay, so March whatever rolls around and now I get my contract fully guaranteed for 2022. Like, Whereas all these other players, they're getting approached. Riley Reef getting approached for pay cuts. You can't do that with Kirk Cousins. You have to extend him if you want that cap hit to go down. And I think that's the worst part about Kirk Cousins' contract. I think he's lived up to it just fine, honestly. But the fact that it's guaranteed has put the Vikings in such a bad position. Whereas like most teams can kind of shift the money of their quarterback around. And I honestly think that's the worst part about Kirk Cousins' contract. I don't know if you guys have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, I think that's why he like partially signed here as well, because I know he
I
took a lot
think
of
Tanishka's trying to talk, but I can't hear her.
no, not again.
I thought I heard her, but anyway, we can just keep moving on. The show is almost done here. I hope Tonishka gets her mic fixed here because this last section is pretty much dedicated to her. I think we all have like fan favorites across the league. We all know that Ryan loves his Oklahoma guys. He loves Baker Mayfield. Those are like his stands. I think we all know that my guy is Stephon Diggs, and Tonishka, hers is Justin Jefferson. And I'm surprised he hasn't responded to the tweets that she sends out to him. But I just wanted to give a little spotlight appreciation section to Justin Jefferson, and just kind of highlight how impressive his last year was, from a perspective of a rookie coming in. Everyone expected him to do kind of worse than Stephon Diggs, right? Like I remember saying, like, he can't do what Stephon Diggs did here, and he did. And I ate my own words on that. I think he's a great player. I see you're back with us, Tonishka. I want you to give us something on Justin Jefferson. It's your appreciation spotlight. So give it to us if you got it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
Let's go. Yeah, no, it was crazy to me as well because okay, so it's crazy because in the pre-draft process last year, I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of Justin. Um, my evaluation on him was so wrong, which is also kind of why I like him more because he proved me really wrong. Like, I thought he was the whole slot receiver, sort of like schemed up by LSU, all that fun stuff that he's not. And that's why I didn't really want him that much. I also didn't think he was going to be there because I thought Philadelphia would, obviously pick him. But I was surprised when he was there, and then I was sort of disappointed that we took him because I just thought that he wasn't gonna be an outside receiver like Stephon Diggs was, and I was like, did we really just lose Diggs for a slot receiver? And but then
I felt the same way.
Week 3 came around, and I was like, okay. And then because when he went off on the outside, I was like, okay, never mind. He can play outside, and that was like the big thing for me because I expected like going into the year for him to be like a 700-yard guy, get some yards in the slot, all that fun stuff. But yeah, I don't think anybody expected that out of him. So it was fun. It was crazy fun, and no preseason either because if they had that, he would have started week 1 and 2 and gotten more yards possibly. So it's impressive.
Yeah, he was outstanding and beyond anything that I imagined. And when we look back at that clip and see Rick and Zim kind of just laughing at the Eagles for taking Jalen Reagor, I get it now, right? Like I'm laughing like, you idiots. Why would you not take him? Like he could have. Carson Wentz is maybe still there, right? If you have Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver for the Eagles, like it changes an entire franchise. And I just can't speak enough good things about Justin Jefferson's versatility, the way he cuts in and out of his routes, his intelligence, in year 1. Like we're seeing him we got corners going against them, and they're falling on their asses left and right here, and it's just he's incredible. And I'm hesitating getting a jersey because I feel like every Viking player that I get as a jersey, they just end up leaving, and I don't want to put that jinx on Justin Jefferson. I want him here. I want him to stick around for a long time. Ryan, give us some thoughts here on Justin Jefferson and his a little appreciation spotlight here.
Yeah, I appreciate him because he actually did respond to one of my tweets, and he actually ended up for the Pepsi Rookie of the Year campaign thing. He quote tweeted my tweet about him. He showed some love and actually entered me into a contest, and I'm winning a signed mini helmet that I'll give to my son, which so I'm pretty excited about. So big fan of Justin Jefferson because of that. And was already. So it's a love-hate thing with him a little bit. And again, this is going back to my Oklahoma ties. CD Lamb is my boy. He's probably my favorite non-Baker Mayfield player in the league. And he's better than CD Lamb. And it makes me sad because I wanted CD Lamb to be the best receiver in this class. I wanted CD Lamb to be the best receiver in the league. And I can't say that I can't honestly say Justin Jefferson's better. I can make up some stuff that I have done on Twitter saying that CD has more competition, that he has to compete with Cooper and with the Gallup and with, all of these players for targets. But it's just that Justin Jefferson's better. So much appreciation for him. I think he's a phenomenal receiver. I think the sky's the limit for the kid. I'm super excited that he's on our team. I'm glad that Philly passed on him because we probably would be sitting here with a Jalen Reagor, who's not a horrible player, but he's not Justin Jefferson. And really excited to see how he continues to grow because he's got a huge shoes to fill that he left behind for rookie year into his sophomore year to repeat and hopefully increase either from a yardage or from a TD standpoint. Because that's the only thing he didn't do elites, so to speak, was score a ton of touchdowns because they all went to Thielen. But if you go back and look at the tape, he was open on probably half of Thielen's touchdowns anyway. So it was just dealer's choice at that point. So I love the kid. I'm super excited. I am elated that he's here, and we're in good hands with him.
Yeah, he's amazing. I'm glad we have him. And I would love to get his buddy Jamar Chase here as well with that number 14 pick. And I think he'd be just as thrilled. So I'm surprised Tonishka didn't jump through the screen and try and strangle you when you said that he responded to your tweet and not hers. But I know he did like one of her Instagram comments. So
yes.
He knows she's around. Anyway, I want to thank you guys both for coming on Vikings Happy Hour this week. I know we had some connection issues, and we'll get that fixed for next time. But it's always fun to kind of have these conversations, and I'm excited to talk about this with you guys in the future. We got some draft stuff coming up, and for all the guests in chat here, I think I mentioned it earlier, but we have Stephen Turner, the host of ESPN's 102.7 The Game out of Kentucky. He's going to hop on next week and kind of talk some Keelan Cole. And then I'm hoping for Tyler Forness to kind of get on here and talk about some quarterbacks for the upcoming 2021 draft here. So come back next week, 8 p.m. Central, and continue to come back, like, subscribe. We got a lot of good guests coming up, including Darren Wolfson from KSTP and Score North. So stay tuned for that one. That one will be announced soon. So thank you guys and have a good night.
Awesome. You too.
Thanks, Matt. David, you're muted.
I want to thank Tonishka for joining us tonight. Ryan and Matt, you too, and everybody in the comments. I know last week I told you that I was expecting my second grandson. Well, it looks like it's going to happen within 48 hours. My daughter dropped water burst this evening, so it is close. It is coming.
Let's go.
Next week, the show will go on as planned. However, Jason Brown, the man of renown, may be running it. Until then, all you guys stay safe, stay sound, and join us tomorrow night because I'm not leaving before Friday. Tomorrow night, we have Viking Hot Take with Donnie's favorite host, Flip Mozzie, and Eric Thompson of the Daily Norseman going at it. See you then. Skål, everybody. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skål, everybody.